everybody, Heather the Bard here. So I did not do a lesson last week. Around the farm here we were haying, and if you aren't very familiar with what that entails, it's a big project and life pretty much stops while that's going on. So we got done with that the first part of this week, and so I'm here to record the next lesson. So rhythmically, if you are familiar with your ukulele, you've been strumming, good rubber wrist, good contact with the strings and whatnot, here's something else you can do to kind of vary your strumming technique a little bit. It's called damping or muting. There's two ways you can do this. So the first way you can do this is when you play your chord. As you finish strumming your chord, you drop your palm basically against the strings to kind of damp the sound, stop them from vibrating. And so what that kind of looks like, you strum, and as you tip your hand, you lay, and it can be whatever's comfortable for you, but anywhere along this part of your hand on the strings. And so that sounds kind of like. There's another way you can do this. The second way you can do this is a favorite among mandolin players and bluegrass music, folk music. However, it typically only works if you're playing a four-fingered chord. So say you're playing E minor and you're playing it with both these strings pressed down. You will strum and then you will let go of the pressure, but still keep contact with the strings. See, when you play the chord, the strings get pressed down and then you just keep contact, but you let up on the pressure. And that achieves a similar effect. So same sort of thing. In bluegrass circles, that's called chunking. And it's just another rhythmic technique you can do to kind of vary your strumming. Now, how would you use this? Typically, songs are written and composed kind of like stories. So if you remember all the way back to high school English class, you have your little graph of a story. So you have your beginning, you have your rising action with the climax at the top, and then down, and then the conclusion on the other side. Songs are written kind of like that, with the climax of them being aiming for the last couple of choruses that you sing before the song is done. So what you would do, what I like to do, is when you are playing a song, to kind of set up something rhythmically with your strumming and keep it kind of solid and standard at the beginning. Something that if you're playing for other people, that they can kind of get used to and get comfortable with. Personally, I like to keep my strumming pattern the same for the first couple verses of a song. And I will vary it a tiny bit for the chorus. Then you can kind of come back to the next verse, because usually you have two verses, then a chorus, and then another verse. When you come back to that other verse, you kind of keep it the same as you did in the beginning. Or you can kind of vary it a little bit. Generally, I don't like to vary it too much unless that's something that, if I'm doing a cover song, and then that's something that the group that originally did it did. But you kind of want to vary it just a little tiny bit, and that's just enough to kind of cue to the listener that, hey, we're changing things up here a little bit. And as you go through, you can kind of change your rhythm, your strumming pattern just a little bit each time to kind of keep things interesting for the listener, signal to the listener that things are changing. It helps build intensity as you're moving towards the climax of those last two choruses when everything's like all out and whatnot. And this is just another way you can do that. Sometimes I've played songs where I've done standard strumming for like the first two verses. I change it up, like for example with one of my other videos I talked about the roll strum. I did roll strums throughout the chorus, come back into the third verse, and then I did this rhythmic damping and muting technique to kind of change things up a little more, back into the chorus, with the roll strumming, and then something completely different for the last two choruses that were like all out. And that's just a good way, it's a good practice to kind of build intensity through the song to help tell the story. I mean, remember, songs are telling a story in a short amount of time, and so they've got this nice arc going on, and changing your strumming kind of gives you the tools to be able to help facilitate that story arc and the rise and fall of intensity throughout the piece of music. So, my name's Heather the Bard. Please check out my study group on Facebook. It's called The Bard's Ukulele Study Group. I'll leave a link below. And if you enjoyed this lesson, consider tossing a buck in my online tip jar. And there you have it. Another way you can change up your strumming with damping or muting. If you have questions, drop them below. And happy playing.